Introduction. All over the world, each and every day, there are thousands of people generating millions of dollars in revenue through the Internet. The way that each individual is doing so varies enormously, as there is a huge multitude of different ways of making money online. Even so, it is still a fact that there are millions of dollars being made online on a daily basis. And the best part is, this is a business world that is open to anyone and everyone, and whether they have a college degree or whether they have dropped out of high school, it doesn't matter. Furthermore, previous business experience is not required, nor is a truckload of startup cash, because no matter who or what you are, you can get started today. Of course, if you are just considering whether you should attempt to grab your share of this online goldmine or not, one of the first considerations has to be how you can do so. What is the best way of making money online, in other words? In other words, even if you have tried to generate cash from the net already in various different ways, or perhaps in just one way up to now, you may well ask exactly the same question. It's all very well and good talking about making money from the net, but how do you do it? More accurately, how do you make good money without going to college to get a degree in software or graphic design or something like that? This book is going to address this question by introducing you to a way of making money online that is far less well known than many other money-making ideas. I am going to highlight why the relatively hidden nature of this business is actually a strong point rather than a weakness. You will also learn why, if you can master the basic skills, and trust me, the required skills are very basic, this business can generate a very handsome online income for anyone who masters it. What I am talking about here is a craft or an art known as copywriting, which can be incredibly lucrative, as you are just about to discover. And by the end of this book, you will have everything you need to know to get your own copywriting career off the ground, so you can literally hit the ground running. When you run, you always get to your destination more quickly than you do if you walk, or more likely, stumble towards that target. So if you want to grab your share of the copywriting millions, this is where the journey begins. However, before beginning, there is one point that bears mentioning. Whilst the primary focus of this book is on how you start a business where you get paid to write sales copy for other people, you can also use this information to create highly effective sales pages for your own products or services too, as exactly the same principles and ideas apply to the research and writing skills that you apply to writing your own copy or writing copy for a customer. Applying what you read in this manual to your own sales page will be every bit as effective as it would be if you were selling your copywriting services. What is copywriting? It's as old as business itself. If you are interested in the idea of making money from copywriting, the first question you probably have is, what exactly is it? The answer to this one is dead simple. Copywriting is the art of writing copy, or more specifically, the art of writing successful advertising copy. This is basically all there is to copywriting, creating advertising materials. Now, as you are no doubt already aware, advertising was not something that was invented when the net came along in the way that net-focused activities like website design were. On the contrary, advertising is a feature of everyday business that has been around almost since the very first day someone decided to trade a product or service for whatever represented currency at the time. As soon as someone started selling, advertising was born, and it hasn't changed a great deal in centuries. Every time you turn on the TV nowadays, you are bombarded with adverts every few minutes, and behind every one of those adverts, there are copywriters earning their keep by applying their creative skills to producing that hard-hitting advertising copy. If you open a newspaper or a magazine, the story is exactly the same, And no matter where you find yourself on the net nowadays, you are almost certainly going to see advertising materials on pretty much every website you visit. The idea of copywriting is therefore not a new one, nor is it something that is restricted to the net. On top of this, many of the tried and tested advertising principles and theories that have been passed down over the decades are still just as effective today as they were 100 years ago. The classic ads from those days still work with a bit of modernizing, every bit as well now as they did back then. As an example of both of these factors, take a look at the Ad Classics website, where there are in excess of 1,000 classic ads dating back to the dawning days of the 1900s. Open up any category of advert on the site, and you will see that there are dozens of individual adverts. If you open any of these ads up, you might be shocked to see that ad copy that was effective back then is not all that different to the advertising that you see nowadays on TV, in magazines, at the movie theater, and on the net. Look right there on the top corner of the ad listing page, and you have the ubiquitous Google advertising materials. It's the same at the top of every page on the site, proving what I suggested earlier. It doesn't matter what kind of website you visit, you will be hit with advertising. Now, as someone who is shortly to start generating an income from copywriting by creating advertising materials, you should immediately realize that this is a very good thing. The more widely advertising spreads, the more demand there is for people who can create effective advertising materials, which is where you are going to enter the story very shortly. I would highly recommend that you add this site to your bookmark or favorites folder, because once you become a copywriter, there will be times when you need inspiration or new ideas. This site is a goldmine for uncovering old advertising copy, which obviously worked, because otherwise it wouldn't be a classic. Consequently, this is an immensely rich source of advertising ideas, a ton of information available for free, so make sure that you keep the URL handy. Classic advertising books, like the timeless Scientific Advertising, should not be ignored either, even though they are nearly 100 years old. This particular book by Claude Hopkins was originally published in 1923. The advertising principles that were analyzed and recommended back then are every bit as appropriate today as they were almost a century ago, as the basic principles of advertising that were discussed in the book still apply. Consequently, to master the basics of advertising, the two resources highlighted above provide everything you need to learn both the theory and the practicalities of creating effective, profitable advertising materials, even if you have absolutely no experience of doing so previously. What is the net copywriting angle? As suggested, the ability to write successful advertising copy is not something that is new, nor is it something that is restricted to the net. There is, however, a specific copywriting angle that is very specific to the net, which is the ability to write successful sales pages for online products or services. Learning how to create sales pages of this nature for profit is the focal point of this book. If you have been surfing around the net for more than 5 minutes, the chances are that you are already very familiar with sales pages for products that are on sale on the net. If, however, you have little idea of what I'm referring to here, you can find thousands of product sales pages by visiting an affiliate network site like ClickBank.com. Open up any category on the site by clicking a popular category name on the marketplace page, such as money and employment. This generates a list of products index under this particular category. As there are over 10,000 products available through ClickBank, there is never any shortage of sales pages. So if you need to clarify exactly what kind of page we are going to focus on, take a quick look. Although you should be careful not to waste too much time with ClickBank at this stage, it is an easy place to waste precious hours idly browsing around. There is one thing you would notice if you looked at more than a handful of sales pages. Study enough pages and you will begin to sense that the quality of the sales materials varies enormously from those that feature top quality professional level sales copy to stuff that has obviously been produced by someone who has absolutely no idea about advertising and online promotion. If you are anything like me, this raises a very important question. Why would anyone who has a product or service to sell online be interested in employing someone else to write their sales copy for them? Here is the perfect answer in a real example that happened a few years ago. At the time, a very well-known online marketer was about to launch a brand new product which he knew would be a real killer. The guy behind the product had already made millions through his online marketing activities, but he nevertheless recognized that his strength was, and still is, selling and marketing, whilst there were other people capable of writing more powerful sales copy. He also recognized an essential truth of online marketing, which is the fact that if a particular job or task does not play to your strengths, it is almost always better to get someone else who is an expert to do that job for you. By getting an expert involved, you usually save yourself an inordinate amount of research and background work, as well as a huge amount of time. Moreover, the finished product is always going to be better than you could have made, and you can use the time that you have saved to focus on your strengths, to make 5, 10, or 100 times the cash that you kept in your pocket by doing the job yourself. Consequently, he paid a highly respected online copywriter a reputed $25,000 to write just one sales page. It could have been more or less, but it was certainly a 5-figure sum for only one page of advertising copy, a few thousand words at the outside. And guess what happened? Due in no small part to the power and effectiveness of the advertising copy, the product was the first digital information product to gross over 1 million in sales in one day. So, would you say that the initial 5-figure investment was worth it or not? The question doesn't really merit asking in truth. Of course it was worth it, because without that copy, superbly crafted advertising that sold the product fantastically well, it is certainly possible that the gross income on the first day would have been an awful lot lower. If you were to compare this situation with the vast majority of ClickBank marketers who do everything, including writing the sales copy themselves, you would undoubtedly see a very different picture emerging. As the majority of these people have no experience or background in copywriting or advertising, they generally do a very poor job with their sales copy. And the worst thing is, they don't even recognize the problem, or even that it exists, because they do not have any guidance or copywriting advice available. This prompts a question and highlights an opportunity. To deal with the question first, how difficult is it to write good advertising copy? The answer is not all that difficult, because the resources you need to create highly effective ad copy are easily available on the net. You have already been introduced to 2 such resources in the previous chapter. It requires nothing more than learning what works before applying it. The opportunity is, of course, represented by the fact that while some less business-minded online marketers attempt to create their own sales copy, most of the smart guys, for example, the people who have the money to pay for it, are more than happy to pay high-quality copywriters thousands of dollars to create their sales page advertising copy for them. This is obviously your curtain call. So let's begin by considering what you need to do before getting started. Before you get started, fame and fortune, one is far more important than the other. As perhaps suggested in the previous chapter, there are a handful of online copywriters who are very well known, like the 5-figure copywriter who was mentioned. People like him can and do command massive fees, and in contrast to what is happening financially elsewhere in the real world, their fees only ever go up as demand increases incessantly. I will introduce you to a few of the acknowledged copywriting greats later, because they do have an integral part to play in this copywriting plan. However, the thing to understand is that for every well-known copywriter, there are hundreds of unknowns. And while some of these people are undoubtedly struggling, there are also a significant number who are nevertheless making a very handsome living from their copywriting activities. So joining this group should be your first target. For example, I recently saw an ad from a copywriter who I did not know, who was offering to create a sales page for $7,500, discounted from his normal price of $10,000 per page. The ad itself was very persuasive, and there were plenty of testimonials on the page as evidence that this individual was good at his job. So, if I had been in the market for a copywriter, this would have been a very interesting offer. But what you should take from this is that you do not need to be a famous copywriter to make good money from this business. After all, if you charged only $5,000 for each page you write, which would definitely be a bottom-end fee for an experienced writer, and you picked up one commission every week, then you're looking at a business that will pull in just short of $250,000 a year, working from home. But I can't write. I guess that if one thing should be clear from what you have read so far, it is the fact that as the vast majority of sales pages are still heavily text-based, as opposed to sales pages where video is used to get the sales message across, you need to be able to write if you are to create sales pages like those that you should now be familiar with. Now, I know from years of experience dealing with online marketers of all levels of skill, ability, and business backgrounds that some people appear to be great natural writers, whereas others seem far less naturally inclined. Seeing people to whom writing seems to come naturally can be depressing, and I have seen many people entirely dispirited because of it. For example, I have met or heard of many would-be online entrepreneurs who never got out of the starting blocks because they allowed the fact that they had never written anything more complicated than email to derail their business before it even got steady on the tracks. But here is a very important factor to take on board, which might be the key to whether you succeed or fail as a copywriter. Very, very few people in online business, or indeed in any other walk of life, are naturally talented writers. As proof, many of the top copywriters in the business freely admit that rather than being naturally skilled writers and admin, what they were and are ordinary people who were willing to learn their craft and then practice so that they became just a little better with every passing day. It is completely unnecessary to be naturally gifted if you want to become a high-quality copywriter, because everything that you need can be learned. Indeed, trying to do things in any other way would be foolish and self-defeating, because if others have already done all of the hard work for you, and they have, why waste your time repeating what has already been done, reinventing the wheel, as this is commonly described? Maybe you can't write advertising copy at this moment, but by the time you have finished reading this book and have used the resources provided here, you will have everything you need to start creating top-drawer online advertising materials at your fingertips. Whether you think you can write or not is therefore entirely irrelevant as far as copywriting is concerned, because nothing is genuinely new in the world, and when the old stuff works, you should use it. As all successful businesses have done since commerce was first invented, you need to do nothing more than learn from others before improving on what they are doing to land the success and the fees that you are striving for.